You believe you pray to God, that prayer is a movement from you towards something higher. You imagine yourself speaking and God listening. Between the one who asks and the one who responds, there seems to be distance, a bridge built by devotion. But Rumi questioned this assumption. He said prayer is not an act that begins with you. It is the real calling itself through you. The words, the longing, the silence all arise from one source. The seeker, the search, and the sought are not separate events. If the impulse to remember God is already God remembering himself, then who truly kneels in devotion? When you pray, are you reaching toward the divine, or is the divine awakening within you to its own remembrance? Most people understand prayer as communication. A person speaks, God listens. The worshiper asks, the divine responds. This model gives comfort because it confirms individuality and effort. The sense that your words travel toward a distant listener. Yet this distance also hides a paradox. If the divine is closer than thought, what space remains for communication to cross? Rumi saw in this belief a subtle illusion, that nearness must be achieved rather than recognized. For him, prayer was not an act of reaching out, but the discovery that there was never separation to begin with. Rumi taught that the desire to pray does not originate in the human heart. It arises from the same source that receives it. Every cry for help, every moment of gratitude, every silence of awe, all are the movement of God within himself. You do not begin prayer. You awaken into it. He said, your longing for him is his message to you. The invitation precedes the response. The beloved calls himself into remembrance through the tongue of the lover. If this is so, then devotion is not self-expression. It is participation in the eternal dialogue of being aware of its own presence. You often say, I prayed. But Rumi warned that this statement hides misunderstanding. The I that claims effort is the very veil prayer seeks to dissolve. The moment you say, I worship, the act has already been divided. Rumi compared the human will to a reed through which the wind passes. The sound is not the reed's possession. Likewise, the movement of devotion is not authored by you. It is being expressing through your awareness. To see yourself as the cause of prayer is to mistake the instrument for the source of music. You may think that prayer requires words, structure, or form. Yet Rumi said its essence lies in the silence that frames every word. Speech belongs to the surface. Silence belongs to awareness. When the tongue moves, meaning still depends on the stillness that holds it. In true prayer, even words become transparent. They no longer reach outward but return inward, revealing the listening that has always been present. You begin to sense that silence is not the absence of prayer. It is the place where all prayers begin and end. For Rumi, consciousness itself is the field in which prayer unfolds. All awareness is the divine beholding itself through countless forms. When you feel drawn to devotion, it is not a personality acting, but awareness turning upon itself. In that moment, no one is speaking to anyone. There is only the motion of knowing recognizing its own depth. You call this motion worship, but it is simply reality folding back upon itself. If awareness is both seeker and sought, then prayer is not a journey toward God. It is the awakening of God within the very act of seeking. Prayer is often treated as exchange, a request followed by reward. You ask for peace, forgiveness, or relief, expecting a result. But Rumi said this understanding confines the infinite to human commerce. True prayer cannot bargain with what already includes everything. When you ask from separation, you affirm what is false. When you pray from unity, there is nothing to obtain. The only answer is recognition. To pray without motive is to see that the real needs nothing, and that you, as expression of that reality, already stand within its completeness. When this recognition deepens, the distinction between worshiper and worship dissolves. The listener and the speaker are one awareness conversing within itself. The prayer and its response arise together, inseparable. Rumi said that when love speaks, it also hears itself. The dialogue of devotion is not an exchange between two beings. It is being reflecting upon itself. The illusion of distance fades, and prayer becomes pure knowing. At that point, even the question, "Who prays?" loses meaning, for there is only the real, unfolding its remembrance in every direction. As this understanding matures, your intention in prayer changes. You no longer seek to alter events or persuade destiny. You seek to perceive rightly. Prayer becomes alignment with what is, rather than negotiation for what could be. You begin to see that surrender is not defeat but clarity. When effort ends, understanding begins. The will to influence dissolves into the willingness to witness. In that stillness, devotion becomes insight, the wish to see as the divine sees, without judgment or demand, simply as presence aware of itself. Rumi said the highest form of prayer is existence itself. Every breath, every pulse of life, every act of awareness, all are continuous praise. You live within a vast act of worship that never began and never ceases. To exist is to participate in that remembrance. When you realize this, formal prayer becomes recognition rather than request. Whether you speak, listen, or rest in stillness, the same truth continues. The real praise through every form. Life itself is the ceaseless bowing of being before its own perfection. You return to the question that began this reflection. Who is praying when you pray? The answer is not an idea but a quiet recognition. Prayer, the one who prays and the one being prayed to, all are expressions of a single awareness. The movement of devotion was never yours. It is the real turning toward itself, through the form you call I. When Rumi said, "The seeker is what he seeks," he revealed that prayer ends where understanding begins, in the silence where there is no division, no effort, only the real. Aware of its own presence, the reflection began with duality, a person addressing a distant God. It ends with unity, awareness speaking to itself through the rhythm of existence. Along the way, the illusion of the doer dissolves, intention transforms, and words give way to silence. Through Rumi's reasoning, prayer changes from act to recognition, from seeking to being. You discover that worship was never about reaching outward, but awakening inward. The final clarity is simple. There was never a who in prayer. There was only the one, remembering itself through the movement of your awareness. The prayer that never truly ends.